But to start us off, mate, let's get straight into it. Buy low, sell high, starting with the quarterbacks.
Yep.
Who are you looking at here?
Buy low. I'm going to go with Big Ben Roethlisberger. I think he's been flying under the radar a little bit, and he's got some real good weapons. And he hasn't really been lighting the world on fire, so I think you could get him for quite cheap at the moment. And I'd say he's a quarterback one rest of season.
Yeah, he's pretty reliable. Like, I don't
Yeah.
think he'll ever have a week where he goes like 30, but he's not going to have many weeks if he doesn't get injured where he goes like sub 18 or something.
He's just
So
he's always going to have 300 yards and a couple touchdhdowns.
Yeah, exactly. Very reliable recipe there. So if you just want to set and forget quarterback, he's probably your man.
I was considering sending Cork Matt Ryan for Big Ben, but I don't think he'll have a bar of it. So I'll probably just not send that one.
He's to those listening, we have a few inactives who don't cop any trades, and he's one of them. Well, he actually plays, but he just doesn't cop trading.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I like Big Ben. Do you think he's comfortably a quarterback one, or do you think he's on the verge of it?
I think there's about 8 blokes who are comfortably in there, and then there's probably like 6 others who are kind of in the same tier to make up the remaining 4 spots. And I'd say Big Ben's in there with like Tannehill, Burrow, Ryan, those sort of blokes.
Yeah, so in a 12-man with a 1 QB, you'd still back him in though to be a QB starter. Yeah, so definitely a buy low option there. My buy low is Lamar Jackson, the man I traded to you. He's only had 3 20-plus scores this year. It's been well documented that his passing game's not been on, and in fantasy terms, he's just not been as dominant, but scored 18.6 against the Colts, but that did include a rushing TD. However, he's only scored 3 rushing touchdowns this year, and you'd expect him to almost match that number in the back half of the year, if not like double it. He's had 18 rush attempts in the red zone all season, and the next most for the Ravens is only 11. So if there's a rushing touchdown for the Ravens, it's actually most likely it's going to be him based on those stats. He did throw at 82.6% against the Colts defense, so a very good one. So you can look at that 2 ways. You can think, well, that's unsustainable, or you can also see that as maybe the passing game's starting to improve. He's not going to hold that completion rate, but it might, jump from mid-50s to mid-60s or whatever it is at the moment. He's also coming off, his last 3 fixtures have been the Eagles, Steelers, and the Colts, all 3 very good defenses. Now he's got the Patriots and the Titans, who are a lot weaker on that side of the ball. And then looking to fantasy playoffs, it's that time of year. There's only 4 weeks left. So if you're looking like you're going to make the fantasy playoffs, you've got to start factoring in that as well. He's got the Browns, Jags, Giants, Bengals. So
totally for that.
Especially, well, even against the Browns, you'd imagine the Ravens will be scoring 25 plus against all 4 of those teams. Giants are a good defense, but their offense probably won't be able to stay on the park for long enough. So, yeah, you'd think Ravens will be scoring a lot of points, and therefore Lamar, whether it be running or throwing, has got to get involved. So for me, Lamar's definitely a buy low. He probably has been all year, realistically. So, but yeah, I like that. I like him as a buy low option. So might get him back this week, mate. Maybe. Do you have another buy low, or you got to sell high?
We'll go sell high, QB. Yeah, I've got one per posse for each. Yep. So I'm pretty sure this bloke might have been my one last week as well, but Cam Newton again. Played against the Jets, was pretty average through the air. I mean, he had a high completion rate, but it was all like small passes to Jacoby Myers. Didn't score any touchdowns, but he still somehow pumped out a 23 because he ran in for 2 touchdowns. But I mean, this was against the Jets, and he looks very average. So I think you can still sell him decently high, considering he's got some name value being Cam Newton, and he just had a big score. So I'd be looking to ship him off because I still think there's no way he's a QB1 for the future.
He's my main sell high as well. He always, like we say, the rushing TDs carry him, but he basically does score one every week. But
that is
the
true.
thing is, the thing is, the week he doesn't score a rushing touchdown, he's
going to be
you're
ugly.
going to cop a 10. And at this time of the year in fantasy, you can't really be having that. And this is ridiculous. He's only thrown 2 touchdowns all season.
Really?
That's actually absurd.
That's disgraceful.
That's a joke. But yeah, their offense, it looked a little bit better on the weekend on Monday Night Football, but it was against the Jets. But yeah, he threw an uncharacteristically high 77.1%. And then they've got the Ravens this week. And in round 1 of the playoffs, he has the Rams and the Dolphins, who are arguably 2 of the most informed defenses right now. So, yeah, definitely a sell high Cam Newton for me, especially in QB1, like 1 quarterback leagues. But yeah, I don't think Cam Newton's a QB1 going forward. My other sell high is Josh Allen. This is a debatable one because I had him in the buy low last week, if you remember. But he scored 36 against an awful Seahawks defense through a ridiculously high 81.6 completion rate, which is completely unsustainable. And the other aspect of his game, he had 4 touchdowns, three in the air, 1 rushing, which is also unsustainable. He's not going to be getting 4 every week. The Cardinals is their next opponent, and then they've got the bye. And then in the fantasy playoffs, they have the Steelers, Broncos, Patriots, and Dolphins. So apart from the Patriots, those other 3 aren't ideal matchups. And given the fact that he just went huge, it's skyrocketed his average. And although he had a pretty bad month before this week, I think people might forget about that. They'll just look at last week's efforts. And I reckon if you get good value for him, I think he would be overvalued right now by his owner. So, by other people around the league. Sorry, not his owner. So I reckon you could cash him in. But that's probably a debatable one. Do you think that's a fair point, or would you just set and forget Josh Allen at this point of the year?
Well, I mean, you can set and forget him, but you could probably sell him for a lot right now coming off that week. I've got a question. Who would you rather going forward out of Josh Allen and Lamar?
Oh, that's rough because the Bills' offense looked really good on the weekend, and the Ravens haven't really looked good on offense at all this year. But I think I'd have to just go Lamar. I think his fixture's a lot better, and just the rushing yards is Allen loves a rush, but it's more just in the red zone. So I'd probably just go Lamar, but it's actually pretty tight, I have to say.
Yeah,
I assume you would go Lamar as well, or
just because I have him, I probably wouldn't do it straight up. I'd just keep the bloke who I actually have. But I reckon it's a bit of a coin flip situation there.
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously Lamar's my buy low. So if you could look at Allen for Lamar, so it's actually an interesting 1v1 there. But yeah, I'd probably just take Lamar. But based off this year, it's kind of hard to argue that point. But I just like Lamar's floor with his rushing yards.
Yep.
And you've got to assume the Ravens passing game at some point is going to click. So I'd probably hedge my bets there and back him in. But yeah, I could see why someone would go Josh Allen there. So it's a tough one.
Yep.
All right. I was going to say this in the last episode, but I forgot. But yeah, if you feel free to comment anything. Like last week, we had a few guys comment their start and sit dilemmas, which we enjoyed answering, and we actually got it right, partially right, but which I was impressed with. So yeah, feel free to comment a start and sit or a trade suggestion, even if you don't take our answer like rigidly, just if you want an opinion. We love getting around that stuff. All right, running backs, buy low. Who have you got here?
Yep. So I was originally going to go with Austin Eckler here, but I'm not actually sure if you can still buy him low because it's kind of pointing that he's going to be back most likely next week, if not the week after. So
the only thing about Eckler is there's been no news on ESPN. So if someone if someone doesn't do like a deep dive, you might be able to get them. But yeah, that's
so I'd kind of suss out what you can get him for. But I mean,
not T Higgins.
Not T Higgins. I was offered T Higgins for Eckler. No, it was an instant reject. But I'm going to go with Antonio Gibson, actually.
That's interesting.
Decent rest of season schedule, and he's still got a really good role. First 2 downs, he'll get you minimum 16 rushing attempts each week, a couple of catches. And he's kind of similar to what Myles Gaskin was a bit at Miami, probably in a slightly worse offense. But like, he's going to give you some good volume, and he hasn't really been lighting the world on fire in terms of scores lately. So I think you can get him pretty cheap, and he's definitely a top 20 running back going forward.
Yeah, and on the weekend he had a fumble, which saw his snap count go down, but they always go straight back up the next week. So, I definitely rate that shout. JD McKissic is a bit of a worry, but I was looking at their snap counts, and I'm pretty sure they play a lot of the snaps together, because McKissic's was like 86, and
McKissic's
was like 46. So I think they play them together, and McKissic just gets the catches, and Gibson runs it down the guts. But yeah, their running game's actually pretty good as well. So they usually have a decent yards per carry, and Gibson would most likely get the red zone attempts. I know Peyton Barber does sometimes, but he's kind of been phased out of over the last few weeks. But yeah, I like that shout. James Conner is my buy low. Had an absolutely awful one against Dallas. I think what did he score, like 4 or something?
It was how weird was that?
Yeah,
against Dallas.
This is a bit worrying. I don't know how much to read into this, but his last 2 snap counts are 58% and 46%. When he's at his peak, he only averages about 65%. So probably don't overreact to that, but that is probably something you do need to monitor, because we saw last year, as soon as he didn't start playing well, they went straight to a committee. Jalen Samuels got more touches and stuff like that, Benny Snell. But I think it's mainly down to game script for those two. Against the Ravens, they were trailing. And then against the Cowboys, they were trailing pretty much the whole way. So they needed to throw heavy. And although he does get a little bit involved in the pass game, I think they do have Big Ben has more preferred options at the running back position when they need to throw it, or they just go no running back. So I don't think you need to worry about that in the next 3 weeks. They've got the Bengals, Jags, so you don't have to worry about game script there, and they're also horrible defenses against the run. And then they've also got the Ravens coming up, who they're actually statistically not very good against the run, which people probably might not know, but they're not that good. So probably you don't have to worry about him there. And then in the playoffs, he has the Bills and the Bengals in the first week of the playoffs. So solid matchups there. But yeah, for me, he's an RB1 in the next 3 weeks, and probably those 2 weeks in the first round of playoffs. So I think if you can get him cheap this week after his horrible performance, I'm sure there's a few fantasy coaches out there who are blaming their loss on Connor. I think you could get him. So he's definitely a buy low for me.
Good shout.
Sell high. Who are you backing in here?
Yeah, Todd Gurley. He might have been my sell high last week as well, but he just keeps getting a junk time touchdown just to get his score up to like 10 or 11 points. He has his 15 carries for 30 yards every week, but as soon as he doesn't score a touchdown, he's scoring genuinely 5 points tops. And you can't be relying on him to score a touchdown every single week. And I think there'd be people out there that just look at his scores and his average and would want him on their team. So if you could sell him for Antonio Gibson, probably can't, but that would be an absolute steal.
Yeah, or even, like, this is ambitious, but Eckler, like...
Oh, yeah, definitely.
If you could do something like that, or even maybe Gaskin. I don't know how highly you rate Gaskin, but yeah, I'd definitely back that. And I don't know their fixture, but just based on the division, they must play the Bucks and Saints, who are both very good run defenses. Yeah, actually, they play one of them twice.
They have Tampa twice in the playoffs.
Yeah, that's right. I remember seeing that yesterday. And he's also lost a few snaps recently to Brian Hill.
Yep.
His snap count went down heaps. I know, mainly against the Panthers. Not too sure against the Broncos on the weekend. But yeah, I agree with that. And also, game script won't suit against the Saints and Bucks. So, well, most likely. You never know with the Falcons. So I rate that one. Got rid of him a few weeks back. So yeah, definitely get rid of him now, I reckon. Also, similar to Cam Newton, he has a bit of the name factor.
Yeah, exactly.
For me, my sell high, I've got a bit of a cop out here, but it's an obvious one. But he actually has like 75% ownership, which kind of shocked me. But Jerick McKinnon, He's had back-to-back weeks of double digits thanks to rushing touchdowns. And he's active in the passing game, which is good. Even when most and stuff were playing, he would get around 3 to 4 catches a game. But upcoming schedule of the Saints, then the bye, then the Rams. Saints and Rams are like 2 of the top 5 run defenses, and then the bye is obviously a donut. And then Mostert, Tevin Coleman, and Jeff Wilson all nearing return in the next 2 weeks. So, yeah, if I'm a Jerick McKinnon owner, I think he might be a stream option this week. I've seen a few that floating around, but I think Tevin Coleman is playing that week, so I'd be a little bit worried about that. And also the 49ers, at this point, I just don't want to go near any of their running backs, except for most. They just change it up every single week. Hasty's let down a lot of people as a streamer in the last 2 weeks. But yeah, for me, McKinnon, definitely jump off that ship if you're still on it, because you could probably still get value for him. With this coming up week, he does have value, so I reckon you could get something decent for him. So yeah, I'd get rid of him. But then I've got an interesting one, similar to the Josh Allen. It's debatable if he should be here, but it's actually your man James Robinson. This is just because purely it's nothing statistical about his performances, but he's had a ridiculously easy schedule in the last 6 weeks. 4 of his last 5 opponents have been bottom 4 rush defenses, so that's in yards per attempt. Also on the weekend, they did have the Jake Luton guy at quarterback, not Minshew, which might have hurt him. But
he didn't have a single catch with
Luton. He saw his fewest targets since round 1. He only had 2, and every other match he's had like 4 or 5. So his fixture moving forward isn't that bad, but it is a step up from what he's had in previous weeks. So yeah. Also, if you're very confident in your team and you're looking at fantasy finals, so like the second week of the playoffs, the second round of the playoffs, he's got the Bears and the Colts, who are 2 of the best run defenses. So it's a debatable one because he's a good player, high volume, so you can kind of count on him. But yeah, I think he could be overvalued right now. So I'd look at getting rid of him and testing the waters and seeing what you could get for him maybe. Do you think that's fair, or are you keeping him?
No, it's fair. I was just looking at his schedule just there, and it actually after this week it gets pretty nasty. He has that, as you said, the Bears and Indy. I'll probably keep him for now though. I'm not going to sell him this week because I think he has a big game against Green Bay, and then you could probably sell him next week if he scores like 20. But yeah. You could definitely get a lot for him though.
Yeah, 100%. All right, we're wide receivers. Who's your buy low here?
Buy low. I'm going with Allen Robinson, Chicago. He's as consistent as they come, and he's kind of just been pumping out, in between 12 and 16 points. So he's kind of going under the radar a bit. And I'd still prefer him over guys like AJ Brown. I have AJ Brown, Robbie Anderson, people like that. So if you can get him for someone like that, I definitely would. I think he's probably a borderline top 10 wide receiver.
Yeah, very secure. Exactly what you want from a wide receiver.
He's kind of like Keenan Allen, just with the worst quarterback. So he's a bit restrained because of that, but he's still a beast.
Yeah, 100%. A-Rob's been elite ever since like the start of last year, pretty much. And, well, he's been pretty good before that as well. My buy low is Michael Thomas. I think he got like 10 or something. I actually don't know.
Yeah, he had 5 for 50.
I saw his snap count, and straight away I put him in here. He only had 55% of the snaps. So last year he was the wide receiver 1 by an absolute mile. And he saw 89% of snaps for the season. So if you can, I don't know what you'd have to give up for him, but he'd 100% be undervalued right now unless the owner is a Michael Thomas fan. So I reckon if you can, even if it's just like a straight swap for a top 5 wide receiver for him, like, I don't know, Julio for Thomas or something like that, I think it'd be worth it because I can't see his snap count staying below 80% for much longer. And their offense actually, if it's going to play like it did on the weekend, they could have more scoring potential than last year, which is good for Thomas. But yeah, main thing for Thomas is the receptions, and you'd expect to see them back up to his lofty heights next week.
Yeah.
So that's my buy low. Sell high. Who are you going here? I found this one hard. The sell high wide receiver.
Yeah, I've gone with Adam Thielen, and he's been producing some very poor scores, but 95% of the people still view him as Adam Thielen, just beast wide receiver. And I still think you could sell him for quite a decent player. I'd probably have him kind of around that back end top 20, maybe top 25 at the moment. So, I mean, I reckon you could definitely get someone better for him.
Yeah, last week I did my rankings. There's a few players who weren't in it because they're locked away in inactive teams for us. But yeah, he was outside the top 15, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Just like his main thing was targets. That's been his main thing for the last 3 or 4 years, and they've seemed to disappear. I do think the game script is they've got a few tougher matches, including this week against the Bears, which should see them throw the ball more, because you don't think Dalvin Cook's going to be able to get 200 yards, whatever, every single week.
Yeah.
But wouldn't count that out. So I would be trying to sell up on Thielen and Jefferson as well, actually. I don't really rate what they offer to your sides. So I'm an owner of Jefferson. I actually might be trading for Thielen, which is quite dodgy, but it's more just to get Travis Fulgham. But yeah, I rate Travis Fulgham above Terry McLaurin. I know that's seriously debatable, mate. But I probably shouldn't be admitting that on the podcast because it might affect my trading this week. But wide receiver, sell high. Mine's actually, as I said, this was really tough, but mine's Will Fuller. He's been awesome this year. He scored double digits every single match except for one. But I just hate how low his targets are. And he scored a touchdown in his last 6 matches, I think. In his last 2, I think he's had targets of 5 and 4, which is just not what you really want. And then from week 13 to 15, they play the Colts, Bears, Colts. And that's the last round of the regular season and the first round of playoffs. And I just think he'd be slightly overvalued right now, because the week he doesn't score a touchdown, he's going to get 6. So he has a high yards per reception, and he's probably going to score a touchdown more often than not. But I'm just a bit worried about him. And also Brandon Cooks has been outperforming him in terms of targets and red zone targets as well in the last 3 weeks. So I'm a bit worried about Fuller. But he's not. You don't have to panic if you've got him, but I just reckon he could be a little bit overvalued right now. So if you could get something good for him, I think it's worth considering. Do you think that's fair, or do you honestly back him in to just keep scoring a touchdown a game?
Yeah, I will. Obviously, it depends what you can get. I think you could get something quite good, but he's definitely an elite receiver. I'd have him higher than Adam Thielen, for instance, going forward. But he's not I don't think he's a wide receiver 1.
Do you reckon no one would cop Fuller for Robinson, would he? Would they?
Allen Robinson?
Yeah. Fuller, Fuller's like the 14 wide receiver 14. So you could get some serious stuff for him.
Yeah. If you can get Robinson for Fuller, I definitely would.
Yeah, 100%. Or even I don't think you'd be able to get him, but a Terry McLaurin, if you could manage that. Terry's volume is definitely spicier than Fuller's. All right, tight ends, the irrelevant position, the position we love. Well, we actually did some tight end dealing. For those listening, we did in a mega trade. We had Gronk for Waller, swap sides. So I've now actually got a set and forget. Well, Gronk is kind of set and forget, I guess. But who's your buy low here?
My buy low is Dallas Goedert. 100% buy low. I'm actually the most inactive bloke in our entire league owns Dallas Goedert, and I've just been hammering him DMs today, just saying, what have I got to give up for Dallas Goedert? Because I really want him on my team. I rate him higher.
Who owns him?
Quinn.
This is irrelevant to those. So doesn't he own Goedert, Engram, and
Fant?
Yeah.
This is why I need to get a tight end off him.
This is what we're dealing with, people. DM us on Instagram or in the comments if you want to join our league next year, because this is what we're putting up with, guys.
Yeah. So yeah, I sent him Jonathan Taylor, Ayuk, and Cousins for Dallas Goedert, which should be an absolute steal for him, considering he already has Noah Fant and Ingram. But anyway, he probably won't see it. But yeah, he's definitely a buy low. He's averaging like 8, but he's going to be. Ertz isn't playing. Wentz loves to target his tight ends. I could see him being a potential top 5 tight end going forward because now he's fully fit and healthy as well.
Yeah, definitely an interesting prospect. And yeah, coming off that return game, I think his value will be a lot lower than it should be. So I like him as well. I think this was my buy low last week. So if you're in the buy low twice, you're arguably not a buy low because you shouldn't be talked about here again. But Mark Andrews is once again my buy low. He's seen in the last 2 matches, he's seen 6 and 5 targets respectively, and he's only caught 3 of them in each. So that catch rate should lift. Usually it's a lot higher on his end. And as I said before with Lamar, I'm expecting the Ravens passing game to start improving before the NFL playoffs. And I was looking at their red zone targets. He's received 11 red zone targets. The next best is only 4. So if they're going to start throwing more passing touchdowns, it's most likely going to be him seeing them. And although I keep crapping on about don't be someone who's TD reliant, he does see 6 to 5 to 4 to 7 targets a game. So he's got a higher floor than say a Jonnu Smith. So I think Andrews has a lot of upside. So yeah, who are you going with on your sell high?
Sell high, Jared Cook. I think he might have been my sell high last week too. But if you still have Jared Cook, get rid of him. So try and get Dallas Goedert for Jared Cook. That would be.
No
they might. I mean, Cook. He scored 3 on the weekend, but he's still been kind of fluking a touchdown every week, getting 13.
Oh, by the way, as we're talking about tight ends, the absolute king of this show, got to shout out Albert Okwuegbunam, who did his ACL on the weekend. So love you, Albert. We'll see you next year, brother.
Sad time.
Well, he actually might not be back next year, but you still got a spot in my heart, son. But yeah, carry on.
Wishing him a swift recovery. Yeah. So just Jared Cook, just get rid of him for literally anyone.
Okay. He was my tight end 3 coming into the year.
Yeah, he was my tight end 5 or 6. But that's the thing. Everyone was high on him.
Because back end of last year, he balled.
Yeah. People still kind of, like, if you look at where he was drafted in your league, it's probably still quite high. So people might still be clinging on to that a bit.
Their offense is going to improve. So he might score more TDs. But yeah, I just hate how little he's involved.
He's going to be copping like 2 targets.
Now they've got like back. And also they've got other good tight ends as well. Josh Hill has caught a few TDs of late, and Troutman caught one on the weekend. So
exactly,
I'm off him.
Jared Cook is cooked. He's done. So
Cookson is gone. All right, my sell high is the guy you actually wanted to get off the waivers. I'll be honest, I don't get why people froth this dude. Jonnu Smith. He had another double-digit score on the weekend thanks to a TD. But he's seen 2 targets in 3 of his last 4 matches. And so it's genuinely basically, if he gets a touchdown, he scores 10. If he doesn't, he scores 2. So he's likely to score a touchdown in most games because the Titans are a pretty good offense and he's their main aerial threat in the red zone. But when he doesn't score a touchdown, he's gone only above 5 points once. It's happened 4 times this year and he's only gone above 5 once. So he's genuinely borderline losing your matchup if he doesn't score a touchdown. So, and then coming up, they've got the Ravens Colts. So yeah, I'm not a fan of Jonnu. Jonnu's average is quite high, I think. So you could maybe try Jonnu for Dallas Goedert. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know if anyone would cop that, but there's a lot of wild and wacky people out there.
Queensland! It's a miracle! Oh, yeah! What about that one? Unbelievable! Balotelli! Aguero!
chairs. Here's Siddle.